Government proposed a rule that could effectively end work permits for asylum seekers, not limit them, not just delay them, potentially eliminate them for years, maybe decades, or per DHS's own numbers, nearly 2 centuries. I'm going to break down what this rule does, when it could take effect, and why you need to act right now, whether you're filing for asylum or renewing your work permit. And we're starting right now. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now as an asylum lawyer, well, I help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Let me know in the comments if you've got an asylum case pending, or maybe you're considering applying. And listen, I'd especially like to hear from you. If you've been waiting for an asylum interview with USCIS for multiple years, let me know how long you've been waiting. Okay, here's what happened. The Department of Homeland Security published what's called a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking that would completely overhaul the work permit system for asylum applicants. This is a proposal at this stage, not a final rule. To be clear, it has not yet gone into effect, but the proposal is devastating, and you need to understand what's in it. The most dangerous provision is something called the EAD Pause. EAD, by the way, stands for Employment Authorization Document, which is the formal name for a work permit. Now, under this proposed change to the rule, USCIS would simply stop accepting new work permit applications from asylum seekers who are applying for the first time to seek a work permit whenever the average processing time for affirmative asylum cases exceeds 180 days. Now, the current average processing time is over 1,200 days. Now, that exceeds the trigger by a factor of 7, and DHS itself estimates that the pause on issuing work permits could last anywhere from 14 to 173 years. Those are the government's own numbers. So if the rule changes go into effect, EAD issuance will be paused immediately for first-time work permit seekers with no resumption in sight. Now, on top of the pause, the waiting period to even apply for a work permit would double from 180 days to 365 days, a full year. And then the government would be giving itself up to 180 days to process that application instead of the current 30-day deadline. So you're potentially looking at 18 months or more before you could get authorized to work. And of course, that's only if the pause isn't already in effect, which it almost certainly would be. Now, the proposed rule also creates sweeping new bars to eligibility. If you entered the United States without inspection, well, you'd be barred from a work permit unless you presented yourself to an immigration officer within 48 hours of entering and expressed your intent to apply for asylum. If you filed your asylum application more than 1 year after arriving, you're barred unless you establish that an exception to the 1-year filing deadline applies. Also, certain criminal convictions, even relatively minor ones, can get you barred from a work permit. And if an asylum officer or an immigration judge denies your asylum case at any stage while you've got a work permit based on that pending case, well, that work authorization terminates on the spot immediately, even if the expiration date on your card hasn't yet been reached. Now, here's something important. If you already have a work permit, your current card is protected until it expires. But here's the trap. When you go to renew, all of these new eligibility bars apply to you, even if you got your original card under the old rules. The entry without inspection bar alone could disqualify a huge share of the asylum-seeking population at renewal time. All right, now let me walk you through the timeline, because this is where the urgency becomes impossible to ignore. The 60-day public comment period ends on April 24th, 2026. After that, the government is supposed to review all the public comments and respond to them. And that review process, well, it normally takes several months. And then they're meant to publish a final version of the rule. And under normal circumstances, that final rule doesn't actually take effect until 60 days after that publication, though in some cases it can be as short as 30 days, depending on the specifics. So this means that under a normal timeline, we're looking at several months before any of this could take effect. That's the good news. Here's the bad news. DHS could try to ram this through and claim that the rules are effective on April 24th, the moment that the comment period closes. And if they attempt that, well, people will absolutely sue to force the government to follow its own rulemaking process. And there's a pretty decent chance that a judge would agree and slow things down, because skipping the required steps is exactly the kind of thing that courts tend to push back on, right? Now, there's a chance the courts could block this proposed rule altogether. They could say that it's straight up illegal. That's what happened previously in 2020 during the first Trump administration when DHS tried to basically do the same thing that they're trying to do now. A federal court struck that rule down because the official who signed it lacked legal authority under the Federal Vacancies Reform Act. It was kind of a technicality. The wrong person signed the paperwork. This new proposal fixes that specific defect, so it's going through proper notice and comment rulemaking so far under a confirmed secretary for DHS. But look, people are absolutely going to challenge this rule in court on other grounds, and that litigation could delay implementation by months or longer, or potentially block it from ever taking effect. To be clear, there is real reason for hope on the litigation front. Courts have blocked immigration rules before when the government overreaches, and this rule has significant vulnerabilities that attorneys are already preparing to attack. But you gotta understand, nobody knows exactly how this is gonna play out, and when you don't know whether or when exactly the rules could change, well, you can't afford to sit back and just wait for clarity. So let me break down exactly what this means for you. If you have not applied for asylum yet, but you intend to do so, file now. Don't wait another week. Here's why the timing matters. So under the current rules, you can get a work permit 180 days after filing your asylum application. Now, if you file right now for asylum and the new rule does not take effect for several months, which the normal rulemaking process strongly suggests, well, you might actually meet that 180-day requirement and get your work permit under the old rules before the new ones kick in. That window is real, but it's shrinking every single day that you don't act. And if you already have a work permit, look, do not wait to renew. You can file your renewal application up to 180 days before your current card expires. If your expiration date is anywhere within the next 180 days, then you need to be filing your renewal right now. Not next month, not next week, now. The goal here is simple. Get your renewal submitted and processed under the current rules before any new requirements take effect. Because once the final rule drops, well, those new bars that we talked about, they apply to renewals too. Now, the good news is that the pause on accepting applications altogether, well, that only applies to first-time applicants for a work permit and not to people seeking to renew. But to be clear, the bars to eligibility for the work permit, they do apply to renewals as well. Now, that means that entry without inspection bar, the one-year filing deadline bar, all of it, all those apply. People who have been working legally for years could suddenly be told they no longer qualify. Also, people seeking to renew would be subject to a biometrics requirement, meaning more hassle to get your work permit. So whether you intend to apply for asylum or you already have a work permit based on your pending asylum case and you're within 180 days of your card's expiration, the time to act is now. This is your window. It might not stay open forever. If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, please call my office today. That number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us right now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you to secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it truly is an honor to support you in your asylum journey.